I know the feeling.
What just happened?
Oop.
There he goes again.
I have never had that problem.
It goes the other way.
Yeah, it's usually boing.
G'day, I'm Colin Dangard and welcome back to the Colin Dangard Show. With me today I have a beautiful lady here. We're going to talk outrageously. She doesn't know this yet.
Oh,
so
no.
if she gets up and walks out, I've got her tied up to something, okay? Her name is Temple. She's wonderful. Okay, so yeah, what I'm going to talk about today, I'd like to just address what's happening in the country and what's happening with the relationships. Something seems to have happened since you could walk up to an attractive lady someplace and said, yeah, I want to own you tonight, okay? That doesn't work anymore. So you have to be a little bit more like modern, I guess, and say, hello, how are you? Oh, you look quite beautiful. Yes, yeah. Well, you'd actually fit in my Lamborghini, I think. So you can talk about Lamborghinis, but you got to drop it in a sentence, you know. So it's not on purpose, you know. And it'd only take me 15 minutes to get back to my Malibu mansion. But you'd be okay with that, wouldn't you? But that's how it goes today. Anyhow, Temple, what's your experience with dating today?
Well, maybe more of observation. I don't know. I hear like, well, I'm married, so, but from experience, it's a jungle out there. Like, I don't know. I don't feel like anybody is being like their authentic self. Like everyone's walking around with like this facade, and it's like I feel bad. I feel bad for people, honestly. I don't know. Everybody has an agenda. Or you have like the very small percentage of population who's into spirituality and really want to find their mate, and the pool of those people is so small that it's like good luck out there. I don't know.
It's like a fish in a bowl, isn't it?
Yeah.
And,
like it's like what do they call it? Someone just told me the other day. So there was ghosting, and now there's something else, and I don't know the term. Like, do you know the term? Can I talk to you? I'm allowed to talk.
Well, actually, she knows the term. She's just being coy, you know what I mean?
I don't know.
She knows all these terms. Believe me.
I don't know. I've heard some.
Temple's a pistol. A married pistol. Just means better hunters than others, because they have to be. They're married, by goodness.
Well, so if I were dating, I'm very unfiltered. I'm say it to your face. I tell you what I want. Like on a first date, I would be like, do you want babies? I did do this because I was separated for a while from my husband, and that's like one of the things I do. Like I go straight in, and it can be off-putting for some people, but other men find it quite like refreshing, because it's like, look, I'm not beating around the bush. You know, if you want kids, like, you're out of here. I'm too old. You know what I mean? But they do. I had when the one guy that I went on a date with, the first date, I'm like, so you want babies? So like this, and it's like, oh well, come on. Like, I mean, I got like maybe. You know, I got like clearance eggs here that I might be able to have like a kid, like in a couple years left. But he was just like, he was so caught off guard. But I knew I could talk to him that way. Like I can really sense people. I can feel like their energy and stuff. So it was really like, it was fun, and we laughed, you know. But some men I could see they would just be so just taken aback by the directness. But I'm direct, and I have always found, so like when I was younger and dating, men loved that. Yeah. So I just knew how to approach men. I did the opposite. I was an observer. I watched all the other chicks and how ridiculous they were, and did the opposite, and all the men were chasing me. Yeah. I just played the game. You know, I acted like I didn't care, even though like inside I was like dying, you know, like really wanting the guy, but I just acted like I didn't care, and that makes a man chase you.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like and there's got to be a confidence, and that's the other thing I talk about is like, because I have a girlfriend who just really didn't have like the confidence in high school, and she's like, Temple, like, I don't know. She's like, you had all like these guys, and I'm like, she's like, I just didn't have the confidence that you had, you know. And I'm thinking, where did I learn that from? I watched all the movies. I watched all the beautiful women. Who was it? There was from the '80s, like Kelly LeBrock and like Kim Basinger, and like they just exuded like this sexuality, you know. And I study them, and I'm like, I just want to be like this beautiful statue, and I just carried myself that way. That's all I did. I just studied how these other women were, and it worked. And I did. I had like the guys would say, they would be like, yeah, Temple, you weren't like those other girls. You were different. I'm like, yeah, because I just like I observed, I took it in, and just did the opposite of what all the other desperate chicks were doing.
What's the most embarrassing thing that ever happened to you?
Ew. Oh.
The hubby came in?
No. Can we go there?
Yeah.
It was with you.
Oh no.
Okay, so embarrassed. So, for those of you that don't know, Colin is like my best friend, mentor, and we met, hit it off. I bought a saddle from him, and then I had a book idea, saw that he had written a book, and I was like, oh my gosh, he can help me write my book. So I conned him into flying out to Pittsburgh, where I lived, to see like this book I had written. So basically the rest is history. We became like great friends and helped me put my book together. But the other thing is he lived in like my most favorite place, which is Malibu. And it was like, oh my God, I have to come out there and work on my book, right? so he's like, no, you're not coming out until you write like, what was it, 20,000 words, some outrageous amount of words. So because I wanted to come out here so bad, I literally calculated how many words I would need, like how long it would take me to get that many. And I did it, like, but it was like, I don't know, it was a couple of months or something. And this, I forget how many words, but whatever. And I'm like, Colin, I got the words and I'm coming out.
I counted them and there were 20,000.
I don't know if it was 20, it was a lot,
Yeah,
because you were blown away by like how many words I got. Anyways, so find this cool place, this cool cottage so we could like write. And he's like, oh yeah, we're gonna go to my friend's place and we're gonna ride horses, because we both love horses. So I'm dying because this is so funny. So he rents this little roller skate of a car. It's so tiny. Because back then, like this is like 10 years ago, like they, for some reason, like the rental cars were like really pricey or whatever. And so anyways, we are driving up this road, this dirt road, God only knows where in the California mountains. And we almost didn't make it up the road. We had to almost Fred Flintstone it up. Meanwhile, he had painted this picture. There's this beautiful home, and he had his own sleeping quarters. And I was like, oh, this is fantastic. Like, this is like so California, right? We're going to stay at this beautiful place. We get there, it was nothing like I imagined. It was normal. It was just like in his sleeping quarters.
There was one bunk that was part of the program.
Quarters, which I thought was like a guest room, was a 1970s tiny travel trailer that hadn't been cleaned maybe since the 70s. And I'm like, oh my gosh. So anyways, there was a water issue, that like a drought or whatever, so they were very conservative with the water, and I didn't know like how big of a deal that it was. But so we had gone riding, it was hot, I couldn't walk, we rode so much, like I literally couldn't even walk, and I wanted a shower so bad. So I go in to take a shower, and there's no water. And I'm like, Colin, what's going on? He's like, oh, they must have shut the water off, like to the shower in the trailer or whatever. He's like, oh, come on, I'll just take you to go, into the house or whatever. And we went into the house. And is it okay if I tell this stuff? Okay. We go into the house and he tells his friend I needed to take a shower. And she looked at me like I had like 3 heads. And I'm like, what's going on here? I'm like, I know there's like a drought, but is it really like that bad? So she's like, no, just wash your face. And I'm like, okay, well, I can deal with that. Well, so then I try to do that, and then this is like the embarrassing part. I go and use their bathroom. I get my face washed. I'm feeling somewhat human. And then I have to go to the bathroom. Like, to the bathroom. And as soon as I go to sit on the toilet, I see a body walking by, because they had like that glass, that frosted glass that divided the bathroom to the bedroom. And of course I freak out and I'm like, okay, not going, because they're like, are you done? I don't know who it was, or they're like, are you done yet? I'm like, no, I'm not done. I'm like trying to pull my pants up before they came in the bath. So I like shimmied out and I go find you and I'm like, Colin. I'm like, I have to go to the bathroom. And he's like, well, what do you mean? I'm like, I gotta go to the bathroom. And this is like our first time together.
A big date.
Well, no, like it was just uncomfortable, right? Like I don't know you, and it's just like weird, And I'm like, what am I gonna do? So he takes me back. He's like, I got a great idea. He's like, follow me, and we go back to the trailer, and he gets a trash bag and puts it over the toilet, because they had shut the water off. And he's like, oh, I'm like, oh, this is great. Yeah. I was like, at this point, I'm like, I don't even care. Everything went out the window of like, I don't care what he thinks of me. Like, I gotta go. So he puts the trash bag over the toilet. I'm like, okay. And I like shooed you out. I'm like, just get out of the trailer. Go to the bathroom. I'm done. And then I call him back in. And I'm like, Colin. And he's like, where is it? And I'm pointing. And he goes over and he ties it up, tosses it over his shoulder, and I'm like, where are you going with that? At this point, it's like beyond comical. I'm like, I'm just like, you can't make this up. So he tosses it over his shoulder, walks out the door, and I'm like, I don't know, I feel like $1,000,000. My face is washed and I had an opportunity to go to the bathroom. So a few minutes later, he comes back in the trailer. I'm like, what did you do with it? He goes, buried it over the hillside. I'm like, what? It's as good as gone. It's over the hillside. And literally, like, you walk 2 feet out of the trailer and it was like a cliff. So somewhere on a cliffside in California is my bathroom business. So that went from embarrassing to like probably one of the funniest stories ever. Like it was so funny. So yeah.
I thought to myself, this is going to be, it'll take a bit of talking to get out of this situation to get it back to a romantic interlude. It seemed to have gone so far down. I'll never rescue this.
Oh gosh.
However, I did. So we've had a great time.
So funny.
And you're actually a very good writer. I enjoyed reading your book, and one day it'll be published, I hope.
Yeah, no,
because it's a very, very good book.
Yeah, because of you, I was able to. It was amazing. So, what you were able to do, because I that was the other crazy thing is I thought I had already started writing the book. So when I conned you to come out to Pittsburgh, the East Coast, and then you're like, all right, I want you to, email me what you have. And I went to look for what I had. I didn't have anything. And I was mortified. I was like, oh my gosh, it's like, oh, it's up in my head, this book idea. And I had to be honest with you. So I called you up and I'm like, I don't actually have anything. And you were so kind. You're like, I don't care. You're like, okay. Because I don't know how, like, if I had 2 weeks before you came out or whatever, you're like, I want you to write your ass off. Just write. And I did. I locked myself in the room and I wrote until you came out. And I had a substantial amount written. And oh my gosh, I remember the moment, like, you sat down to read it and I was like, please God, I know, like, I'm like, I know this is a really good story. I know this is a really good story. I can't wait to see what he says. You know, it was like it was a real defining moment for me. So you finished reading it and you were like, my God, you have a bestseller. This story's amazing. And then in a weekend, you helped me to plot out like all the chapters because I didn't really know what the hell I was doing. So that was super cool. Yeah. So now all I need to do is wipe the dust off because the story wasn't done writing itself. Really. So now I gotta finish it. But honestly, I'm not even gonna be able to put everything in it because nobody would believe it. I'm gonna have to like take some stuff out or not put some things in. Nobody would believe it. People would. It's so outlandish that people would be like, "No, she made that up."
Temple would say to me is, "You think I should put that in?" I said, "You shouldn't leave it out. Okay, put it in. Just a bit. It's a bit risque, isn't it?" "Yes, put it in. Risque it up. Make it hotter."
So
it is a very sensual book. But you're a very sensual lady.
Yeah, but it's got everything in it: spirituality, humor, sex. But yeah, I mean, it'll be exciting to get it finished.
Yeah. So, let's talk about how it is. You know, you were this hot babe. I remember you. Can still see you. The first time I saw you, I go, oh my God, that has to be the best looking woman I ever saw. And then you'd come and sit on the saddle. I'm selling a saddle at Quarter Horse Congress. Had a bunch of saddles there. Sat on the saddle and I'm looking at it and go, God, just look at that saddle. Look at that legs. Look at that. Wow. I said, could you just move that leg out there a little bit? Have a look. See how it fits you? Oh, I go around checking it all out. Just got to check the seat fit. Oh, this is so hot. So hot. And then she says, look, we can't do anything. We just can't go there because I'm married. I said, well, that just means you had more practice than somebody else, I guess. Don't worry about it. Doesn't worry me. Anyhow, she kept it cool all the time and nothing did happen except lots of innuendo. Or something, innuendo. Innu what? Endo.
Oh no, but we've had quite adventurous times together, though. I think that we have good chemistry in general, just like two kids that can't act right.
Should we be doing this? No, but let's do it, okay? Is anybody watching? I checked the door. No.
Yeah, like when I invited myself to go to Australia with you.
Oh, that was so funny.
I'm like, oh, I want to go. You're like, oh, that'd be great. I had my ticket booked. We were off, and then you were like hiding from me in the airport. Took off with my. Do you remember that? You took my boarding pass, went up the escalator, and just left me. And I'm walking around the terminal looking for you, and I'm like, that son of a bitch just like.
But I'm up at the top of the escalator, hiding and looking down at her, and I'm highly amused because they're calling the boarding, and she doesn't have a boarding pass. I have it. So the look of terror on her face was something else.
But you do. You put me in the craziest situations. But I have to say the one thing that you do for me that's been really, really good is I'm fearless when I'm around you. Like, when we're riding horses, I just really trust you, and I'll just do shit that I wouldn't ordinarily do. I like, except for he decided to put me on this horse.
That buck.
Oh my
It
gosh.
just did a few bucks and a bit of pirouette and a ronde-jambe. I didn't think it was too bad, but I could still see Temple now. It's the first time I've got her on a horse, and she said she rode, so I said it's good enough. So I saddle up the horse and toss her on it, and we go across, start to get up the mountain, and the horse starts spinning and turning, and Temple says, "I'm a mother of children. I can't be here."
Well, that was it. No, so we had ridden quite a number of times together. So I had gotten pretty courageous, and I trusted. I thought I could ride this horse. I was like, I'm going to be brave. I can do this. And they just trailered the horse here. Like, you hadn't even ridden it yet. And I was ballsy enough to get on this horse, who was a like show horse, like dressage or something. Like the what was that French horse? What was the name? Stehle Francais. It's a gorgeous white horse or whatever.
Yeah.
So I get on it and ride around here in the paddock just to kind of get a feel. I'm like, okay. And then so we head out with the doctor. Your doctor,
Yeah.
Dr. Hugh.
I always ride with my own doctor, okay?
We get across the street and I feel the horse underneath me. And I'm like, oh boy. And I'm like, I've got to remain calm because this horse is going to feel me. So we start heading up the hill and this horse is dancing. And I'm like, oh dear God, this is not good. And I could not remain calm because the horse had never been on a trail before. He was only in the ring. He was a show horse, come to find out.
There's no way I was going to ride it up there, that's for sure.
Thanks a lot. So,
she said, "What's the matter with that horse?" I said, "I don't know. It's never been up a hill before, I don't think."
oh my gosh. We get up the hill and you were like way down. I was with the doctor and you're like way down the hill. And I'm like, I'm not riding this horse. I'm going to die. Like I do. I'm like, I have a kid. And I did it. And that's when I screamed. I'm like, Colin, I have kids. Like, I'm not going to survive this. And you were just like grumbling when you rode up the hill. You're like, wah, wah, wah.
I
So
said, yeah, well, from now on I won't be taking women out if they have kids. That's the end of it.
Wow. So this is what happened though. So you come back, you're like, all right, I'll ride the horse. You get on my horse. I'm like, great, because I don't even like your horse. Your horse is a pistol. So I get on your horse, and I'm like all messed up at this point, you know, trying to like shake off my nerves. You get on the horse, and I don't know, it was like a male or a female. I don't even remember. I can't remember. Was it a mare?
The mare, yeah.
It was a mare. You get on her, and she starts pulling her crap with you, and you had to take her. I remember you were like taking her down the hill, and she was just like dancing, and I was like, thank God, like that she's acting like this, so I don't look like a pussy. And I get on your horse, and that son of a bitch is running me into the trees. And the doctor's like waiting for me at the top of the hill. I'm like, this is supposed to be fun, and I'm fearing for my life here. I'm getting ran into the trees. I'm like, I'm done. I'm like, Colin, take me back to the barn. It's done. And it what? And then I think you took the horse out, and you came back, and you're like, I can't believe I put you on that horse. I'm like, I'm gonna kill you, Colin. So it's been quite adventurous. You definitely make me fearless for sure.
Then I went to your place and I rode one of your horses over there. That was fun.
Yeah.
You had a
That
couple of nice horses there.
Well, that big Palomino. He's a little bit too green. Well, that's how we met.
Yeah.
Because he was too green when I bought him, and I needed a safe saddle. And I'm like, I need an Australian saddle. That's what I'm getting, and then I'll be confident in the saddle, and then that's how we met.
I went out to your place and I said, well, I'll ride the saddle. Put on that horse. I said, put on that horse. And the thing does a whole bunch of bucks and spins around and takes off at the gallop, and I'm going, wow, some sort of horse. Wow. Come back and I say, yeah, you need that saddle on this horse. You need a saddle you can't fall out of, okay?
He was big.
He's big.
He was big, like over 17 hands.
He's a monster.
Big giraffe cross.
Yeah,
like
something
warm blood.
else.
Yeah.
Yeah. But you showed an awful amount of bold, anyhow.
Yeah, he made me, like, he definitely, I got confident having him, and then just riding with you, for sure. Yeah.
Well, it's I get a lot of. For me, the horse is a very extraordinary creature. We run on electricity. Our brains run on electricity. Our bodies run on electricity because the brain is sending circuitry to the body, which makes everything function. And you get on a horse, and it also runs on electricity. So it's our electrical neons and their electrical neons get together and mingle.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why if you concentrate on the horse and put some power of thought into it, you can align things better.
Yeah, but you have that connection. Like, I don't know people that really connect the way that you do with the horse. Like, it's quite extraordinary. Like, I grasp it, but to connect in the way that you do is that, like, that's something special. Not everybody can do that. And they do say, like, so horses, they can feel your heartbeat like several feet away from you.
Yeah.
Like, that was something I didn't know, like, years ago. I mean, I knew that they were like picked up on, your energy for sure, and they mirror you. But like the way that the connection that you have, like, is pretty extraordinary.
No, I don't think it's, I just think it's ordinary. I think it's very ordinary. Since I was a kid, that's what I did. I couldn't speak when I was a kid. I couldn't speak properly. Yeah. So I spent in the bush, didn't go to school much. I got kicked out of school, quite advisedly so. I was a bit rambunctious and a lot to handle because I had my problems. So a neighbour gave me a horse called Queenie, a mare. And about that
How
time,
lucky.
Yeah,
How lucky you were dying to have a horse at that age.
Yeah, I'm dying to have a horse. I'm 14. And
Yeah,
I just wanted to get the hell out of Dodge.
Yeah.
And I'd spent a couple of years building a stock saddle with an old saddler in the town, Bernie Lawrence, his name was. And instead of going to school, I'd hang out at Bernie Lawrence's saddlery, and he'd show me how to build saddles, and it was really just a wonderful experience. So I did have a saddle. So I put the saddle on this horse and galloped out 30 miles out of town to a place called Paddy's Green. Euphemistically, Paddy's Green. There's nothing green about it. It was just high, semi-desert country and snakes everywhere. And there's a lagoon there full of crocodiles.
Oh, that sounds safe.
They'd come up and snapping and just laying there, big fat things. And you went down the wrong place, you get snapped up, and that'll be the end of you. So there's the 7 out of 10 of the world's deadliest snakes live in this region where I was.
Oh, really?
Yeah, a thing called a taipan. It's a brown snake, grows about 8 feet long. It's got a small head on it. And if it bites you and gets its teeth into you and empties its glands into you, which it can do in a millisecond, you got about a minute to live, or 2 minutes to live, if you're racing. So you have to be very careful. So it was, but I found it interesting.
I don't know how you survive that.
It was, I'd have my horse Queenie and just tie up his hobbler, and I'd cover myself all in mud, just wear a loincloth, and put my clothes up in the tree so they'd stay halfway clean. And in case I had to get out of town, I'd go to town and go somewhere. So clean clothes and set up in the tree. So I just covered myself all in mud, and it was wonderful. Because the flies didn't get you, the bugs didn't get you, and most of all, you move like an animal, and you tended to move like an animal. So if you saw a wallaby that you wanted to kill and eat, you just take a little step, and stand. Wallaby take a little step and stand. And you take a little step and stand. And pretty soon your wallaby is just in front of you, 4 feet away. And that's when you, with a spear, right now.
People wouldn't even be able to relate to what you're talking about right now, like the living out,
But it was,
in the bush, right?
Yeah.
But it's, so not to like change the subject, but so for you, like, it's really, really cool. So because you were alone, you weren't subject to any like outside influence, like no conditioning or whatever, which is amazing because you're so different and like solid in who you are, that you're, you know what I mean? Like you weren't, you really marched to your own beat.
Well, I think,
And that's like,
yeah. Well, the experience for me was quite astounding because, like I said, I couldn't speak properly.
yeah,
So I started reading books. I read Jack London books, and I love Jack London.
yeah.
So I had stacks of.
But the fact that you even like to read.
Yeah, I love to read.
Yeah.
And then I started. I said, well, I'm going to write stories myself. I had a pencil and an old notebook, so I could quickly fill that with writing my Jack London story. So I've got to get some paper to some place. I regretted going to town because I'm a runaway.
Yeah.
The cops are looking for me. The police are looking for me. My mother is very upset. My father is, he didn't bother him. I was gone. That was a good thing. But but my mother was concerned, and she would hang a sugar bag of stuff with self-raising flour in it, and some tea, and some milk, and some condensed
How
milk.
sweet of her.
Yeah, and she'd hang it up on a tree out in a little bend of the road. She knew I was 30 miles inland, but she told me one day I'm going to hang something on a tree.
Yeah.
There's a gum tree. So I go out one day to get the gum tree, and there's a sugar bag hanging there. And then I saw this old jalopy comes along, a beat up old truck.
Yeah.
And my first impulse was to turn Queenie around and gallop the crap out of it, because the police are looking for me and all that. And I thought, no, if I do that, he's going to report a runaway. He's going to say he saw a kid galloping off.
Mm-hmm.
So I thought I'll just be cool here. So I just sat on my horse, Queenie, and got the sugar bag. And he gets out of his truck and he says to me, so he says, what are you doing out here? And I says, riding my horse. He says, yeah, I can see that. But shouldn't you be in school? I shook my head because I knew if I said more words I'd be stammering, and you'd think I was some sort of idiot, as people did. So I just shook my head. No, school. Oh. Okay. He says, well, you've got to go to school. What do you want to be when you grow up? I said, a writer. Well, do you read? I pulled out Jack London and pulled my saddlebag. So yes. He said, oh, Jack London. I read Jack London. Call of the Wild, yeah. White Fang, yeah. I said, yeah. I said, yeah. So we started chatting about that a lot. And then he said, where do you live? I said, about 30 miles. This is Lagoon. It felt like I tell him because I didn't feel he was going to tell the police.
Okay.
I got very confident about it.
Yeah.
He says, yeah. He says, he says, come back. I said, I'll come back by here in a week. He says, I'm going to leave a present for you under that gum tree. He says, great. So I rode off. He drove off. So I just couldn't contain myself wondering about what's going to be under that gum tree.
Yeah.
And I wondered, wow, got to be books. Jack London books. Well, yeah. That's what it's going to be. A stack of Jack London books. But I read them all.
So what was it?
So I rode back out there on a Friday. It took me all day to ride 30 miles to the gum tree. And I'm looking around, and there's an Olivetti portable typewriter from the 1920s, I'd say,
Oh, that's so
with a
awesome.
stack of papers and several with a box of ribbons.
Yeah.
Wow, that's it.
What a gift.
What a gift! Just couldn't believe it.
Yeah.
So I balanced it up on the saddle with all the stuff and carefully rode 30 miles back, crossing creeks and ditches, and I dare not drop that typewriter. And I didn't. I just hung on to that with dear life. And finally got back there and crashed. And held the Queen in. Next morning I woke up and looked at that typewriter and there was on the rock a stack of paper.
So this is what happens when you don't have internet. Back
Yeah.
in the day.
Back in the
You have
day.
extraordinary stories to tell, right? Could you imagine?
Yeah.
Like the creativity. I mean, yeah, creativity is just different nowadays, but like that was like
So I wrote.
extraordinary.
So I wrote a blood and gut story about, because one magazine I read a couple of magazines, and I used to read Man Magazine. Man Magazine, it had titty babes in it as well, but what it really had that I really liked was had adventure stories and in the wild and crocodiles and all that.
Yeah.
And I loved those stories. So I thought, that's it, I'm going to write a story for Man Magazine. I'll have the babe swimming in the creek, and the croc saves her, and I've got this guy Bruce who gets the croc off the babe and saves her, and and then it gets all romantic and hot, and I think, wow, this is pretty hot. And I'm 14, I got a hard on writing this stuff. I'm going, God damn, this is too much.
What a wild imagination.
I'll have to do something to get rid of that so I can continue. So I took it out on a Friday when that guy came back. I showed it. I said, I've written something. I handed it to the elder. And he read it. He said, that is so good.
Really?
I said, thank you. He said, it sounds like Hemingway. I said, well, it should do. I copy him all the time. And he said, well, that's a good thing. If you're going to copy somebody, copy Hemingway. I said, you're right. I said, it's my story, but that's the way he'd write it.
Yeah.
And so it was really good. It was the start of an extraordinary career. And then my Aunt Mary got a hold of it. Somehow I told her about Aunt Mary.
Mm-hmm.
And her name was the same as my last name. He found it down in Cairns,
Mm-hmm.
and he gave it to her. And he sent a message came back by him. Told Colin, I want to see you. So I thought, yeah, okay, don't sound very, because she was really cool.
Yeah, a cool aunt.
I stayed at her place a couple of times, and I just loved her. She was my dad's sister, and she'd in the morning she'd cover up her tits, and then she'd open a bottle of rum and knock that down, and she'd give a couple of good burps, and then she'd get out of bed. I thought, that's a real good, real good procedure. She'd get out of bed and half a bottle of rum, and she was fine.
Oh my God.
And she was something else, but she read my story and she said, and she wanted me to come down. She says, I read your story. She says, you write like Hemingway. Another one that said, you write like Hemingway. I says, yeah, well, I've been copying him for years. I ought to write like him.
Well, yeah, you learned.
Yeah,
Who you learned from?
Learned from the masters, right? And she said, across the road lives a guy, Reg Sutton. I said, really? Yeah, Reg Sutton. He's the editor of Cairns Post. I've told him about you. He said, you're a great writer. He wants to see you. So I go in to see Reg Sutton, the editor.
Mm-hmm.
And he's a stuffy old sort of guy. And he said, yeah, he says, I've read your stuff here. And he's got a copy of his magazines on his desk. He says, you write well. He says, of course, that's not what we write. We write journalism, factual stories. He says, you have to get fantasy from fact. And no fantasy, just fact, okay? He said, if I hire you, you're going to learn shorthand and all that, and take down notes and stuff. Sounds good. Okay, yeah, sounds good. And he says, give me a high school certificate and you're hired. I go, really? High school certificate? He says, no problem with that, is there? Oh, no. Except we had a fire up at the cattle station and lost all the papers. And he says, well, he says, the education department will give you a copy. He says, I can't hire you without one.
Oh, no.
So I waited till he left, and then I went into the sub-editor, the night editor, introduced myself, and announced I'd just been hired. He says, really? Red Sutton never told me about that. I said, oh, you know, he's in a hurry. Busy, I guess. I said, oh, really? Yeah, busy. So I said, here, what do you got going? He says, and I saw on his desk, and he says, he'd shuffled some papers, shuffled some notes, and he says, oh, he says, some stupid guy out of Redfern attacked his neighbour with an axe. So the cops have been out there. I said, oh, really? What went on down there? So the neighbour said he was screwing his wife or something, so he didn't like that. I said, oh, okay. An axe attack. Yeah, all right. He says, but you've got to send a real reporter out for that. And when he went to the bathroom or something, I grabbed the papers, ran over to the cop shop, and introduced myself.
Got the scoop.
Introduced myself as the night reporter for the Cairns Post, and just wrote up the whole axe thing. Wrote it until 6 in the morning, and left it under Red Sutton's desk. And he came in, and he was in shock. And he sent a secretary in to see me. She says, Sutton wants to see you, and he's very angry. So I go and see him. He says, don't sit down, it's not going to take long. He said, I'm going to fire your ass. I says, what did I do wrong? He says, you masqueraded as a reporter for the Cairns Post. He said, I never hired you. I said, you didn't? Oh, that's quite right, you didn't. Okay. So you went to the police station. You got all this. You went out to Redfern. You talked to everybody. And you masqueraded as a reporter for the Cairns Post. And you're not. And he said, how do I know any of this is true? I said, every word is true. How do I know that? You're not a trained reporter. You don't take shorthand. I says, no. But I got a tape recorder. It was the size of a briefcase. It was one of the early tape recorders. He says, you recorded people? I said, why not? No law against it.
And there wasn't a law.
There wasn't a law.
Oh my gosh.
And so he said, I said, you want to hear that quote here?
Oh, are you serious?
He says, so then he started saying, is all this stuff in that tape recorder? I says, yeah, all there. I'll play it off here if you want. So he said, don't have time. He said, leave. He said, I've got to think about this.
He was too good though. Huh?
He says, I've got to fire your ass. I've got to figure out how to do it. I haven't hired you, so how can I fire you? I have a quandary here. Anyhow, the story was published, and then I got hired.
And you got hired because you're just too good not to hire,
yeah.
right? Like.
So I immediately sold it to London. I put in a collect call to London on his phone. By the time, within 48 hours, I was making money out of it in London.
You're so lucky. Like, who does that? Like, how, like.
So,
and like you just go completely against the grain, and who thinks of that shit?
Well, I thought it was the only way to go.
Yeah, but I don't like. But not everybody's like crafty like that, or just it's like, oh my gosh.
But it was started a great career. Had a great time as a journalist.
Yeah.
Worked in over 30 countries. Ended up syndicating myself to over 130 publications in about 35 countries.
That's incredible.
And made a lot of money.
But now because of that, you get to help me do my book.
Yeah, well,
which is pretty cool.
Within everybody is a great book.
Yeah, I truly believe that because I'm fascinated by people's stories for sure.
Yeah.
Like like everybody's got like something incredible to share.
Yeah, everybody has a great story.
Yeah.
And it's really wonderful.
Yeah.
And your book, when I read your book, I was astounded at, first of all, how well you write,
Yeah,
You
for
write.
never, I was not, I, for the record, like, never written anything. I became an avid reader late in my 20s and then just had an insatiable appetite. And I truly believe the reading turned me into a writer. And then the healing work I got done on myself, the acupuncture opened me up and I just started writing. Like, so that didn't happen until my 40s, I think, or late 30s. Yeah, I'm
Yes.
47, so we've known each other for 10 years. So it was until my 30s. Like, I just started having words come out of me. I'm like, this isn't me. And then for you to read my writing and truly believe in me, like I'd never had anything like that before, it gave me like the ammunition to keep going. I don't know that, like, I knew I had it, but when you have somebody see what you know to be true is extraordinary. So
Well, writing's the biggest reveal you can do, because we all have stories,
yeah.
and we are all literate in one way or another.
Mm-hmm.
And you don't have to be literate to be literate.
Yeah.
I mean, you just have to have some grasp of the English language.
Yeah.
I've published millions of words in my life, and I'm familiar with about 20 English words. That's
And you
about it.
can't spell for shit. But
Can't spell for damn. Still couldn't spell. It's like
it doesn't hold you back.
didn't hold me back at all. It's like I was working for the came to America and got a job in the Miami Herald, and I still couldn't spell. And somebody said to me, sub-editor says, you can't spell worth a damn. And I says, yeah, it's something I never worked on. He says,
Just bypass. Somebody else
how come you can write and you can't spell? I said, I think they're two different languages.
It's a thing.
It's, I spell phonetically. And he said, yeah, right. And then Larry Jinks was the editor. He heard this exchange, and he says, we have a whole copy desk to correct spelling. He said, I don't give a damn. He says, Colin knows how to write.
And that's all that
I
matters.
don't care if he can spell or not. I have people who can't write who can spell. Look at them all over there. There's dozens of them. They can't write their name, but they can spell.
Yeah, that's funny.
So I didn't find it much of a drawback, really.
It's amazing. Like, I feel like that something like that would have held me back. Oh, well, I can't spell, so forget it. But you're just like,
yeah.
So I just feel like you just kind of plow through anything that other people would just feel blocked by.
Well, I think the art of telling a story is, first of all, telling the story.
Right.
There's a story.
Mm-hmm.
So you tell the story, and how you tell it is really more important than
all those details,
the small articles of details and stuff. And their whole, as I said, their whole copy desk full of people who can spell.
Yeah.
And they'll correct it and do all that. But writing is, and amazingly in this technological age when we have lots of, now we got
all the AI.
AI is going to write stuff for you.
Yeah,
but
which I know that's not.
It won't really.
No, because you still.
I don't believe it comes from the heart.
Right.
AI doesn't have a heart.
I mean, I think you can use it, whatever, to help you, but you just, like for things like that, that's still a creative act, and you can't mimic that.
Yeah.
So.
And it comes from the heart and soul of the person writing.
Mm-hmm.
And when you read great writing, there's one thing about great writing is it sticks out like a 100-story building on a desert floor. It glows in the dark.
Yeah. That's a good way to put it.
Yeah, it does.
That's the writer in you.
How good is that book? Look closely. You'll see it levitating. You'll see it glowing. See that? All right. Got it?
Oh, gosh.
But, sometimes I read some stuff I wrote years and years ago. I went through a period in Hong Kong when I was editor of the Hong Kong Star, and part of my duties there was to write a short story once a week. And I made it for our Chinese audience, of course. What else is in Hong Kong? Chinese audience. But it was an English language newspaper, Ingwen Singhong, and so it was published in English. So I invented this a character called Fay Hop, and Fay Hop was a hero type who jumped from building to building. And sure enough, many years later, there's some character jumping from building to building.
Yeah.
Oriental type character.
Yeah.
You know, so and Fay Hop was really one of those. He was that person, but it was way before that came up. But,
Mm-hmm.
Chinese mythology, there's plenty of people jumping from building to building. So
Okay.
it was part of the mythology.
Mm-hmm.
But writing in the English language has its own magnetism, because there's no English, there's no language in the world that is so broadly used as English. So that's the medium to writing.
Mm.
And it's an amazing language because it doesn't take, you don't have to be a literary scholar to use it. In fact, if you want to be a popular writer, the less scholarly you are,
Right.
the better off you are.
Yeah, no, because when I first started writing, I was like, thought I had to use like this eloquent kind of, you know, whatever, these words and just all this. And that's how it was coming out. I was like, oh, this is beautiful and great. And then when I would reread like the draft, I'm like, yeah, it's got to be simpler. Just, you know, just tell the story, not so much like the older books where it was really like a lot of detail and stuff. So, like, I feel like I can really write like an older time period if I wanted. But really, it's more about just telling the story, because I personally don't like to read like all that like wordy stuff, even though it's cool to write. To read, it's like, okay, like you lost me, there's too many details or whatever. So yeah, but it's interesting.
But when you look at the great writers, and they wrote all very simply. Ernest Hemingway, the sun burned, the dust flowed across, the bull poured, snorted.
Yeah, so you taught me to write.
Cheered.
Yeah, like you taught me how to write, like just straightforward.
Bullets.
Yeah, keep it tight. That's what it was. Yeah.
But I learned that from reading Jack London. When he wrote something, all these incredible short stories, he'd write and he'd paste them up on his shaving mirror on the side of it, and he'd read it while he was shaving. And if he could take one word out, he would. And he'd read it and read it and read it till he could take not a single word out without changing it. And if you try that as an exercise, it's really amazing what you take out of something.
Yeah, I do that. I do that when I'm writing. Like I go back over and I'm like, oh wow, that's really wordy. Like yeah.
And then I think there's stages to writing, and the first stage is always a vomit of the story. You chuck it up.
Yeah. Yeah.
You don't care what it is. Too much. You
just get it out.
Get it out.
That really helped me. Just like don't even worry about what it looks like. You just get it out and clean it up later. Yeah. It's a really cool process from not being someone who was like, yeah, I'm going to be a writer. You know what I mean? Not like just for someone who just started writing later in life.
But there's easy steps to it. And that is the step is to not create barriers that don't exist.
Right. Yeah, no, you kept me very focused. It made it very simple for me to get it out on paper. And I was just like, who's doing this? Like, this is like really happening here. Yeah. Very, very cool process.
Well, you're a wonderful student, and I enjoyed enormously
it was fun. And then,
guiding you along.
Yeah.
Because you were so enthusiastic about it.
Because you believed in me.
Yeah.
That's all I needed. I was like, oh my gosh, somebody believes in me. I can actually do this.
Yeah.
There's a lot to be said for that. Just one person believing in you.
So, so now we all face the same dilemma today, writers, all of us, is that, okay, you've written a book.
Right.
You like it. How do you publish it?
Right.
Well, unfortunately, the publishing industry has become a sea of leeches. They want to take an arm and a leg and give you nothing, and it's very difficult. The the only way to really do it is self-publishing.
Yeah.
But then you have to get around the publishers, who are even bigger leeches. It's very difficult today because everybody's abandoned.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody wants a quick buck. Nobody wants to really work with something
Mm-hmm.
and believe in something. It's an extremely challenging time. At a time when really good books are needed, good stories are needed.
Yeah.
There's lots to be said and lots to be told. But we're at a time where it's never been more difficult to get published.
Well, I guess we'll find out, huh? You and me both.
Yeah,
A lot of discernment.
yeah. You know, I wrote my novel, as you know, and I've sold I don't know, 20, 30,000 copies.
Mm.
Well, I know people who got name publishers and sold 2,000 copies.
Yeah.
So it's a different field. But of course, to market your own book takes a lot of energy
Mm-hmm.
and takes money.
Yeah. And no matter what. Yeah.
Well, Temple, good luck with your book, and I hope it all works out for you. And you're gorgeous and such a talented, wonderful writer, isn't she? Isn't she beautiful? And her book is, what are you calling it now?
Well, so the men.
Amen?
The men.
Oh, The Men.
The men.
Wow.
Yeah. That was the working title, but I think I'm sticking with it because it's very short and sweet.
Yeah. Where's the line? I'll join up. Thanks, Temple.
Thanks.
This is Colin Dangard, and you've been on the Colin Dangard Show with my gorgeous writer here, Temple.